How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the weekly trading review for the week of August 18th. So this week I took 15 trades, total profits $618.87. Swing trades, I took 2 trades, 2 wins and 0 losses, $620.28. Day trades, negative 141, 10 wins and 3 losses. And there was no other trades that I took. So overall, pretty good week. My best week so far that I've had this year. My first week where I've made 2%. And basically this is the rate that I would have to get income at in order to hit my goal of doubling my account this year. So I'm going to go over the market this week. I'll go over the swing trades, then the day trades, and then we'll finish up with the open positions. So market this week was a quite literal up and down week. We started in this compression at the all-time high. Market pulled back. We got a kind of a medium-sized candle here on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we had a bearish trend day that ended up being a bullish reversal day. A bit of an LPTE day on Thursday, and then we have a big flag breakout candle today on the Jackson Hole announcement or lack of announcement, whatever you really want to call it. So that's what happened this week. I mean, if you look at it on a weekly chart, you'll see a big bullish hammer over here, finishing green for the week. And SPY is above that 15 EMA, which is kind of right around here, above the 8 EMA. And there's also a VWAP that I lined up over here. If I just drop a VWAP right there, you'll see that that came in as some support that the market was leaning on. Okay, so the 2 swings that I took this week, first was RCL, and I took this trade on Tuesday. So we'll look at this M5 chart on RCL. So here is RCL on the 18th. Here's the breakout candle. This is a really nice move. I was bidding lower, so I bid at got in right around at 324, which was pretty much right around here. 324 was the first entry point on this candle because I was bidding at about the halfway point of this breakout candle over here. You can see it broke out. It tested that AVWAP E. Then it tested AVWAP E again, compressed, and then it broke out of that compression on Friday. So let me just pull up RCL over here. All right. So I was long, yes, 23 shares at 323. So you can see if I zoom in on the chart a little bit more, just so we get a bit of a flavor here. Yep, so got in 323 right around here. I got my fill. Then when the market started to rally a little bit, so I'm going to go back to that day and just kind of line this stuff up over here. All right, so RCL dipped, and then it filled in this gap really early in the day, in about the first 30 minutes. So I added 50% on the position at 320 at 326.50. So my average was 324.18. And then the stock basically moved up, tested this prior high at around 332. So I was up a pretty nice amount on the position. But if you look at the daily chart, I figured it had a good chance of testing at least this high candle over here, this high red candle on looks like the 31st or something. Sorry, my info is not quite loading on here. But this the high of this red candle, or even the high of this breakout candle, I thought could potentially get tested as targets. Got over there, and then you can see kind of hit this resistance here. Next day, pulled back, tested this low again, and rallied back up. And, you know, I wasn't exactly sure, you know, what was going to happen here. So ended up taking that 50% off at 325.40. $1.40, so it took a $1.32 gain over here just early in the day because it was kind of hitting this resistance over here at the gap. Market was also kind of down for that day. If you look at the market, I didn't expect a bullish reversal day. So it took some partial profits there. And then on Thursday, stock was rallying and then was kind of doing nothing. It kind of slipped back down, just compressing, not really doing much. Market is also compressing before Jackson Hole. And I already had a couple of longs on. I was in AMD, I was in Open, I was in Bull, and I was in RCL. So I didn't want to have all that risk exposure before that event. I kind of wanted to de-risk. So I took the remaining profits, 23 shares at $325.06 for an 88 cent gain. So overall, took kind of a small win on this trade. Obviously, holding it over, you would have had a really, really big win. Would have been a $20 winner. But, I wasn't a risk that I was comfortable with. And if I was okay with that winner, I had to be comfortable with the flip side is if the news on the market went against me, then I would have had to take a really big loser, right? And since I wasn't prepared for that sort of heat, I wasn't cool with taking the winner there. So that was RCL. Small win on that guy. Next one is Open. So I took Open over here right on August 14th. So took it on this breakout candle here at a bit of a pullback. I got in at 10:35. I got the November 21st 150 calls for $1.60, and I got 3 contracts of that. So really nice breakout. You can see this has a massive parabolic move, pulled back, kind of compressed, and then on this candle on the 14th, it broke above all these sort of resistance levels. So it broke above the AVWAPs. It broke above some of the high volume candles. It broke above some of the downward sloping trend lines. Some of these kind of this little gap fill over here. So all the stuff was basically broken on this high volume candle, and that's how I knew that it was a good time to get in. So I got in the trade, and then I also sold the August 22nd 4 calls for a 17-cent credit. So that way my net debit is $1.43, and that would basically reduce my cost basis and basically negate all of my premiums since I had about 15 to 20 cents a premium. So if that expired, if I took 95% on that guy, that eats away all my premium. So Open basically, as the market sold off, Open was actually rallying, and it hit this IPO VWAP, which is right at this $4 level. And maybe I'll pull up this chart over here. Just so it's a little bit easier to see. So a lot of lines here. I'm going to just hide that right now. So you can see there's this trend line break over here. And there's this IPO VWAP coming in at about 410. So it hit that IPO VWAP on the 19th, pulled back, and then it broke through over here with some of that market tailwind today on the 22nd. So I was leaning on this as resistance here, and on Open. I actually, when the market opened up today, the long calls were in profit, but the short calls were also in profit. I had about 50%. Actually, on the Open, I had close to like a 75% profit on those short calls. So they're at about, I don't know, I got it for 17 cents. They're at about 5 cents. So I was getting pretty close to 75% there. I was targeting maybe 2 or 3 cents as a debit, see if I got a little bit of a fill and a pullback. But I was waiting to see what would happen with the market reaction. Now, if it was bearish, I'd basically just take all the short premiums and I would just stick with the position longer on the notion that it would probably break out and test this high. And if it started to break up and inch up over here, you see the 10 o'clock candle, then I would get out of the short calls and probably take a small profit. So on the 10 o'clock candle, market had a big, long green candle up on massive volume, and I knew this move was going to have some follow through. So I got out at 14 cents, so I took a 3 cent profit per contract. So pretty tiny win, but got out of the way and basically uncapped my gains on that, because otherwise I would have had to sell that for, let me see here, open, yeah, for $1. So that would have basically taken away a whole bunch of my my profits. And I figured that with this market rally and this stock move, it's a good chance to take profits. And if it doesn't pan out, I mean, I can just get in on some other short calls. So it's not the end of the world if I don't take a massive profit on my short calls. They're just sort of basically me getting some money while the stock is kind of doing nothing. And when the stock starts to move, right, or it's still not moving, then I'm going to, take my gains. So stock rallied up all the way, and then it came up all the way to this all-time high at 315. Around 315, which is at this high at 497. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it's 497, something like that. So it was approaching it right here, and this is where I took gains. I was targeting 360, which it might have barely hit on this candle over here, but I got out for 352. So I ended up taking $1.92 cent profit, $1.92 profit per contract, which was basically about 120% gain. So pretty nice gain overall, if I did that math right, which I did, yes. 120% gain, biggest win that I've had this year. Now, could it go higher? Sure, but again, if it goes higher, I can maybe re-enter this guy, and maybe I missed the boat here, but I was like, this is a massive high volume candle. This is a great place to take resistance. That was kind of the plan for my trade, and I just didn't know how long it would take for that to happen, which is why I went so far out with the November calls. But I knew that it's a really great play, high probability, very high, and great risk reward structure, where my loss again capped at $1.60 times 3, so 480 is my downside, which is basically my max risk. And once you sell a couple of short puts, that's going to be lower than my max risk. And my upside is going to be at least 100%, if not more, right? And I took 120% on that. I mean, and those calls at the close are going for, 360. So they pretty much would have hit my target at around $5. Now the tricky thing is, as it was moving up here, the bid ask spreads were getting stuck. So kind of a tricky thing over there. But yeah, so basically, really nice win on open. Those are my only two swing trades that I took this week. I'm gonna go over my day trades now, and I will start in chronological order here. Okay, so let's go back to Monday, which was an LPTE day. So Monday, probably one of the tightest ranges we've seen all year. Completely dead day. There's just no pulse in anything. Very hard day to trade, in my opinion. So just looking for a gem that I could take some nice profits on. So CELH was a nice post-earn grinder. Just kind of continuously moving up, and had this big sort of buying climax potentially over here. And so that's where I was trading. So on CELH, here is the 20th. Where is the 18th? Here we go. Okay, so we got this big breakout candle on the stock. Big breakout candle, pulls back, finds some support, makes another high, pulls back, finds a lower high, double bottom, and then it starts to break above this trend line. So I am long CELH at this 1235 candle. So close right here, 1235. I'm day trade long 4 shares at $60, and I'm just looking for a quick 25-cent gain. This stock isn't moving too much, so just a quick gain. I'm in, I'm out, and not really thinking too much. So pokes up a little bit, gets just shy here, 2 cents lower, compresses a little bit, and then it hits my target again higher at 1 o'clock. Stock does end up continuing up higher. So if you wanted another entry, there was another entry here, 614. And look, you could probably take maybe 25, 30, 40 cents on this guy later in the day. Not a bad place to take some gains as it sort of grinds up higher. And I needed probably one more little double bottom, higher low over here. And yeah, you could get on that trade. But that was a nice win, only when I took on that day. Next day on Tuesday was my first red day of day trading. So I traded HD as a post-earn bear. And I was long at, let's go over here on Tuesday, and let's go here. So Tuesday, bearish day in the market. And if I look at HD, okay, so market is selling off here, and I go long on HD at 11 o'clock. So here is HD at 11. So this is basically the setup that I saw. And I was like, all right, listen, market kind of bearish right now. HD, flight to safety, and it's a post-earn bull here. So it's probably going to resist the market a little bit. I'm just going for $1, right? I'm getting in at 410. I'm going to get out at 411 and, you know, call it a day. Turns out that is not what happened. And so market actually bounced here a little bit. So I did get the market right in terms of a little bounce for the next 30 minutes or so. But HD was selling off in that bounce. Then it started to break through this candle over here. And yeah, started to push in lower below. There was a breakout level right over here that I was leaning on, which was around 408. So started to break through this level. And I exited the trade at 407 for a $3 loss. I think especially at this 1150 candle, wasn't really able to rally up. So, I mean, look, it was a bearish trend day, so like obviously you don't want to look for long. So that was one thing. But I think the other thing that's a little bit kind of annoying is these sort of like flight to safety diversion tickers, where in this case, okay, it's strong, but market's selling off. HT's actually holding up pretty well, all things considered. I do actually have a chance to exit the trade for a scratch on the next day, or actually hit my target the next day. So something to keep in mind. But actually held up pretty well. There was just, I kind of caught it in the peak of the market selling, so I think everything sort of goes down. But two things that I should have done is, one, I think probably not trade that long on a market move down, and just avoid a diversion ticker. I actually lined up the SPY cycle pretty well, but it just didn't produce. So I'm happy I got out of the trade when I did. Yeah, maybe I had a chance to take a better loss on this pop-up over here. But, you know, I'm not sweating it too much. I think I don't know, something about the diversion ticker makes it a little bit more annoying. And I was leading on this level right here at around 750 something. You can see it chopping around before eventually coming back to test that level. So that was my only trade on the 19th. On the 20th, took a couple of trades, but a tricky day, tricky bullish reversal day. But I think I did manage to, I'll have to see, I don't know actually if I took this actually also may have also been a red day, but I'm not sure. I'm going to check my calendar here. Yes, this was a red day. So second red day, on my day trading day, back to back. Now, first trade that I took for this day was Target. So Target gap down, post earn, and was rallying up. So I'm trading this as a bullish gap fill reversal. SPY, very strong selling early on. I take Target right about here, which is this close at, I take it at 97.40, and I'm going for 98.40. You can see 98.40 on Target. There's some high volume low, like kind of this pivot low right over here, maybe this low of this candle right here. So around 98.40 is a little bit of resistance. Figured I can get a bit of a poke there. So I get a nice strong, so I enter right here, one share 97.40. I get immediate follow through, and I get a high of 98.26. So I get pretty close to my target, but then I get this big bearish red engulfing candle, and then I get out of the trade on this high, a 97.41. Take just a 1 cent win / scratch on this as a pullback to VWAP. because I was like, all right, look, I'm not gonna let this trade go too much against me. And if you look at 1045, where it was in the market, actually got a pretty nice entry market wise. Right, market did end up bouncing after that. But yeah, I mean, this wasn't super strong price action on these bullish on this gap fill reversal, so I was just kind of being pretty cautious in terms of me getting long on those. So that was Target. Next one I took was Dash. This was a pretty nasty reversal, but got out of it when I did. So Dash over here, strong move down lower, pulled back, and then I got in here at 236. Now, I was a little bit cautious as soon as I took this trade, and the reason I did is because we got this really strong bounce off what looked like a potential selling climax and a bullish 1OP cross. So I was like, all right, look, I mean, Dash, pretty weak, bounced below VWAP, so it wasn't like it was, wasn't like it was like, it was a good trade, but the buying was a little bit too strong on Dash over here. And SPY ended up having a pretty big reversal day as it sort of got over here, tested the high of this candle a couple times, held during this bearish cycle over here, which I'll make this a little bit bigger. So this benign bearish cycle, lost some mini crosses, so it's weak, and then we get this bullish cross finishing close to its high of the day. So the clue for me was I'm holding it until VWAP. I'm even holding it to this bar here. And the biggest clue was this bar at 150, 155, because we poked below here. And if this closed on a slow of the day, I actually would have added to the trade and looked to take like, a dollar gain or something like that overall, just like a nice tiny winner. But we got this hammer. We got this high volume hammer. The stock pushed up, and then it broke above this high over here. So ended up exiting. So I got in at 236, and I wrote this wrong over here, 236. And then I got out at, and I actually did not put it in here. So when did I get out of Dash? I got out at 239.71 at the 227 candle. So I got out right here, which ended up being a great spot to get out because the stock started to take off. Was gaining relative strength. Market was going lower, finding support. Stock was able to get above the high. So it was gaining relative strength and actually popped up over here, to a new high and got above the 50 SMA. It held the 50 SMA, and then now it's actually pushing a little bit higher today, although it is not super strong given what the market had done. So still fairly weak on a shorter term basis, but I think it's sort of in no man's land right now. Can't really get short, can't really get long. So just got to that when I did. Occasionally you're going to get caught one of these reversals. It happens. So I thought it was a good setup. I'm not really mad about this guy at all. I think I took the loss at a pretty good point when I did. I mean, maybe you could have saved like another 30 cents or something, but, I was just looking for that confirmation. And then once it started to really confirm, then I was out of there. So that was Dash. Took a loss on Dash. Next one that I took was Adobe as a day trade short. And I took it, again on the 20th. So Adobe, basically very steady grinder. You can see markets rallying, Adobe being pretty steady. So it broke through this low of the day compression. You can see it's a choppy guy. So these breaks, it's going to pull back the 8 EMA, right? So I bid a little bit higher, and I got a short at 354.40. So I got in, somewhere over here. I got a nice little entry, and it's compressing, so I'm fine. And I'm just waiting for Adobe to basically break down, and I was just looking for another dollar on that guy. Stock started to break down over here on this 1 o'clock handle, and then it turned into a big bullish hammer. And so when I saw this hammer form, I got out of the trade. So I exited at 1 o'clock at 354.29, which was, I think right around here. So I actually got it a little bit earlier. Basically, it's not really producing super fast over here. and you can see at 12.55, right? SPY is moving back lower. Adobe's not really rallying, and I'm already cautiously bullish on the market here because we made higher highs and higher lows, right? So I'm like, and I'm already wary that this could be a bullish reversal day, so I do not want to get caught in Adobe if it's not producing immediately. So you can see I've been kind of guarded with a lot of the trades that I took, kind of quicker trades. Last one I took was ABBV. So ABBV, I took it again on the 20th. And this was a setup. So market selling off, ABBV rallying. And then we had basically this high minus trend line break again. And I got long 2 shares of ABBV at 210, or sorry, 210.32. 210.32 is when I got long on this guy. So I got long kind of right around here. Started to break up a little bit, and then we got some selling over here at 110. I did wonder if it actually, okay, it did actually end up pushing up the next day. Yeah, so I had my chance to get out the next day. But yeah, so ABBV, kind of another divergent stock where, you know, market is down, it's kind of flat over here, ABB is up, and I'm thinking this has some relative strength. It still has some relative weakness here, but this was a nice breakout. But at the 1 o'clock candle, you can see here at 1, market's now starting to find some more support, starting to rally. Now ABV is starting to sell off as these flight to safety stocks some money's flowing out of them, basically. So again, it's just another kind of divergent ticker that is kind of just kind of tricky to trade. So I mean, between both of those divergent tickers, ABV and HD, they kind of cost me in terms of being green this week. I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway. You know, Dash I can live with. That was a good pick. And yeah, look, could I scratch them overnight? Sure, but I don't want to be holding all my losers overnight just to scratch them out. You know, it's just like not, especially when the market's kind of still weak. Don't know what's going to happen over here. So, yeah, you know, not crazy about doing that all the time for stocks. Okay. Thursday, 8/21. I think I did take I took three trades this on 8/21 here. So first one I took was GE. Post this in the one option chat. So market is flat here. And now here's the context. So SPY's down, has formed this kind of bullish hammer on the D1. I figured, okay, it might get another retest and then start to shoot off. So we get this gap down overnight. We're right at this AVWAP. And if I put up this SPY chart here and just put up this 5-minute chart, so you can see this, and let me just clear this out over here. It's a little bit messy. Okay, so there's this green line here. So this green line is the AVWAP from this 8/1 candle, this big drop here. So you can see how the stock, right, broke this green line, got chopped above it, and the next day just kind of on this, hugging the support. So I'm watching that. Second thing is the scenario here. We get a gap down. We get a whole bunch of tails below body over here. We get this candle here, and then we get a nice green candle on pretty decent volume that closes into the gap. So when I see this, I'm like, all right, boom, I can get some longs in here. So I'm in GE, and I'm long GE at 271. I get filled on I see this breakout candle at 10. I get filled a little bit lower at 10.05. Save myself about 16 cents. GE market kind of moves up higher, starts to fill in the gap, but doesn't quite get there. GE starts to compress, and I'm looking for $1 here. So now GE, the volume here isn't super strong. It had an R volume of like 0.65 or something like that. But what I was expecting was GE. You know, look, I was just looking for maybe $1 on GE. That's it, right? See this high of this candle right here? High is 272.80, right? I'm in at 271. So if I can take $1, $1.50 on this, that's a pretty decent move for that stock. So I get pretty close, right? I get, yeah, look, 271.92. Kind of get $1-ish on that. Not quite. It's chopping around here. But then it starts to pull back to VWAP. Okay, that's fine. I'm cool with that VWAP pullback. Comes back up again. And then at 11:30, I have another chance to take some profits on GE. But here's what I'm thinking at 11:30. I'm like, all right, well, look. Market is having a pretty LPTE day. So it's probably not going to do a whole lot. GE did have this little sell-off to VWAP, but we cut past this candle pretty quickly. In 4 bars, we erased this candle. So I'm thinking, all right, I could take some profits here, but it makes a lot more sense to expect the breakout and maybe get like $1 to $1.50 on this next leg, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, GE instead says, hey, actually, I am going to sell off below VWAP, and I'm going to stay there for pretty much the rest of the day. So I had a couple of chances here. I could have taken a little exit, take a little loss, but I'm like, all right. I was kind of pissed. I wasn't actually pissed, but I was like, all right, GE, you're just being a piece of shit today because I know I'm right on you, but you insist on pulling back. You're right. Like, market's dead today. This stock is pulling back. So I'm like, all right, well, it's pulling back. I know it's probably going to pop up, and I can take like a 1 cent scratch on that. So closes low over here. I'm down about $3 on GE. Pops open, and I get filled on the open at 271.01. So I pull a rabbit out of the hat, and I escape with a 1 cent gain on that guy. Just happy to get out of the trade because GE was being kind of annoying. I didn't get seemed like a failed breakout over here. Also closed below that 8 EMA, kind of around its AVWAP. So to me, not really doing a whole lot on this breakout. I think one of the clues was probably the volume on this, right? You see a little bit of a volume spike over here, but then it sort of pitter-patters. So, there's 2 ways to play it. One way is to be extremely nimble. Over here, you take profits quickly, so GE produces quickly, and when it starts to stop rallying with the market, right, you probably get out for, I don't know, a 50-cent gain on GE. And this is a day that sort of rewards being nimble. So if I give my other example here, which was FTIA. So FTIA kind of in this bullish channel here and had broken up above some of this resistance at 146.50. So FTIA, really nice, strong move early in the day. And I go long right here. I go long at 147.75. So it kind of gets this breakout candle here. I was like, all right, I think this is probably going to take off a little bit because you can see at the 1025 candle, right, market, look, it's looking up over here. Market does pull back a little bit on the gap fill, but it pushes up higher and it holds its own pretty well. So I get in at 147.75, 1 share, pulls back, starts to push up higher. I add 1 share at 148.50 over here on this next candle. So my average is 2 shares at 148.12. And at the 1055 candle, I exit over here. It's kind of chopping around. I exit at 148.51 for a 39-cent gain on quick size. You can see it's just like a very tiny move in this guy, which ends up basically pulling back for the whole rest of the day. And yeah, look, again, it does make that move later. But, the trick is you have to be nimble, get some nice bids. I mean, I think, again, there was definitely a good $1 in this stock. And I was targeting I think originally $2, but there was a $1.50 move in this guy originally. But yeah, just didn't quite get it. So just got to be sort of extra passive on days like this and just take gains when you can on FTIA. So the only thing I took is maybe get a slightly better bid. I think I could have gotten it closer to 147.25, which would have been at VWAP. So that gives me at least a scratch opportunity later in the day. And then I had a good 147. 147.25, 148.25, 149.25. So, yeah, there's maybe perfectly placed. You could get $2, but if I can get $1.50 on that, I think that would have been a little bit more better move given the very tight range expected today. So last one I took on that day was FUTU. That was a pretty nice breakout over here. So this stock, strong move up in the open. It actually broken above There was some resistance here, 178, some major resistance on the D1 chart. So broke above here. Some people took it over here, which was not a bad entry, but it needed to actually test this level, in my opinion. And I wasn't crazy about it because I know that like this stock will make a big run and then it'll make a big pullback. So like I need to wait for this pullback to kind of flush out over here. And it also made a pretty big move, pretty nice move yesterday, right? So it's probably need some time to digest the gains from this leg, in addition just to this move intraday. So pulled back, formed a double bottom, and to start to break out above this high over here. That's when I took it. I got in, and this is one of the stocks when the train it's like a train on a really tight schedule, right? Like this is about to leave the station, and you have one candle, two candles to maybe get in, right? So I got in at 125 at 180, 180, 185. So I got in here, and then I was gonna add over here. So I added at 182 on the next candle, and then I took profits on this candle at 140 at 183.24. So it was $1.31 profit per share for 2 shares. So that was a nice, real quick win. I think Dave took a pretty similar trade, but this was just a nice win. If you look at SPY here, it's moving down lower, but I mean, this is a Chinese stock. It's going to be a little, I mean, it's kind of does its own thing, so there's going to be some correlation with the market, obviously, but it's a little bit more uncorrelated. So when it starts to move, it moves, and when it starts to pull back, it pulls back, and it kind of does that, especially with volume, a little bit more agnostic versus what SPY is doing here. But pretty nice daily chart. I mean, it's been, you can see how it pops, compresses. So you want to get in when it starts to, you know, kind of find support. Okay. So that was the last trades I took on Thursday, and then today on Friday, I did take a handful of trades because I was down for the week, and I was trying to make my money back. So I needed to make, about $4.30, something like that. Maybe a little less. I think I needed to make, done 140. Yeah, for about $4.30. 425, I would have probably been a small green for the week. So that was my goal. I was really trying to get that 425. So first trade I took was BA, which was definitely one of the most insane trades on paper that I've taken, even though it didn't feel insane. So market gap up, moving up higher. Powell announcement coming out in like 10 minutes. I'm long BA over here at 229.23. Nice stack green candles, pulled back over here. I figured, all right, even if it goes against me, I'm still in a decent-ish looking stock. It's not a terribly shitty stock. Got the 50 EMA over here, got this compression over here, got this upward sloping trend line. So got a couple things I can lean on, and I got room to this high minus trend line over here. So I got over here and I set an alert for $1. So I was like, if I can get to 229, if I can get out at 230.23, then I'm in pretty good shape. Powell comes out, big pop up, get filled at 230.23. Actually went up to 231.23, so that could have been a doubler. I think what I probably should have done is it's like a very specific instance, but it actually would have made sense to have a more aggressive order because, you know, it may pop either way. So can't be mad about that, but that was another thing. And I think the next thing would probably be to get a re-entry, and you could probably get in here. There's one entry over here, one other entry over here. No entry for the rest of the day. You can see this is a pretty strong move down. It doesn't get immediately engulfed, right? And that tells us that we're back on track. So there's probably 2 entries in there where you can take a nice, there's $1 in here, you know, $3 in here, maybe $2 in here. And that probably would have made your day. So I took $1 in BA. Next stock that I took was BE, and this was after the pop. You can see I'm actually bidding on BE for a lower bid. I may or may not get it, but we're going to see what happens. So we get the pop up over here. BE is churning up higher, and then it pulls back to the 8 EMA. So I'm eyeing it here, but then I don't quite take it here because SPY's at the all-time high, but then it starts to break out of this compression. So I was like, all right, it's probably going to test this high over here. So I get in at 48.30. I get a better bid by like 5 or 7 cents or something like that. Not the craziest better bid, I will say. I think could have gotten a little bit better. Then it pushed up higher over here, and then at the 1050 candle, you can see market. Yeah, it's kind of hitting some resistance over here at the all-time high. don't want to be pressing my luck, but I felt that it's not going to be knocked down easily from the all-time high. There's a ton of volume. I think it's going to sort of be a compressy day. So over here, it's starting to move up, starting to stall out. So I get out at 48.60, and I take 30 cents on BE. Next trade that I took was Tesla. Tesla, another nice guy. So it popped up over here, made a new high on this candle, then it pulled back. And then I got in, I think at 337.70 as it started to actually close above this candle. That's kind of what I was watching for. If I knew if it could close above this candle, that this stock could kind of grind up higher for the rest of the day. So it closed above that candle. So I got in over here at around 10:45. That is not right. It should be 105. So let me fix that. And I was looking for maybe a $1.50 to $2 in Tesla because it can be a mover. Was just kind of grinding up higher, moved up, pulled back, and then on this pullback, you can see again we got a tiny pullback and then a nice little engulf on volume above the 8 EMA. So I was trying to add here at like 337.90, and then I could take $2 on it. Didn't quite get it. And then I had a meeting to go to later, so I ended up taking gains somewhere around 230. Yeah, right over here, 230. Took gains at 338.70. So I took $1. The market was kind of compressing at that stage. And Tesla was also not like moving up as fast, although it eventually did hit my target somewhere here. I was looking at 339.20, so had a little bit more in there. But yeah, I mean, this is another one where you can see that, right, pulls back. We get this sort of bullish engulf, and then there's some fall through you can get in. And on these pullbacks to the 8 EMA, there's these nice little kind of scalping entries that are a little bit more advanced, but on a nice stock with some good volume and steady price action, right, you can kind of get these orderly moves here to get filled. Okay, last trade that I took over here is ASML. Okay, so it took ASML, it poked into this gap fill, and then eventually did get rejected. So it's a decent setup, not the best setup, but I figured it had really high ATR stocks, some decent price action. I figured I could get maybe $1 or $2 in here. So this stock, I got in one share here at 175.77, looking for maybe $1.50 or something on this guy. Pushed up a little bit, then pulled back to VWAP. And then when it started to find some support at VWAP and broke this high minus trend line over here, I added to the position at 155.40, and then I ended up taking gains on the next candle here at 155.81. So basically a 23 average on the trade after the ad was 2 shares at 755.58. I probably butchered saying that a billion times, but a lot of numbers here. So 755.58, got out at 55.81. So yes, let me just get that right. Okay. So ASML, look, it had a chance to move, kind of getting stuck to this magnet here. The selling pressure for the gap was a little bit too strong. And I just need to get out of the trade, right? I need a GTFO. Just take my tiny win and get out because it's not really worth being in this trade. I needed to see it kind of really take off here. And when it was starting to slow down, I'm out of the trade. That was it. So that was it. So kind of made back my money on a good chunk of that money on the last 2 days. So ended up being slightly down for the week. Still a positive win rate, 10 out of 13. So win rate still pretty good, but yeah, just one or two tickers. I think really HD and ABBV, to me, those are the bigger, kind of the bigger focus for me. But look, I'm taking it week by week, so obviously I want to be green every week and hit my win rate numbers for every week. So that's part of the challenge, but I'm still good for the month, so I'm not too stressing on that. And definitely a tricky week, especially on a Wednesday like that. Those reversal days can get you if you're day trading. So that's, I think, where you got to be a little bit more careful. But Yeah, that was it for the day trades. Let's go over the open positions. So still got 3 positions here. First one is bull. So we've been long this guy since July 25th. We are long the January 16th, 2026 calls, the $10 calls. And we've sold some premium on this guy. So this week I collected the premium on the open. Over here I collected, I shorted last week the August 22nd 18 calls for a 25-cent credit. Collected them for a 2-cent debit, so took 23 cents on those short calls. And then at the end of the day, close to the end of the day, I sold next week's 18 calls for a 21-cent credit. And I'm going to take profits before earnings on the 28th. It could pop up into earnings. I'm not really sure. I mean, we don't have a ton of earnings data. You can see this prior earnings didn't really matter. But there also wasn't as much kind of really activity here. There's a lot more activity here. So we'll see what happens. But so far, I've collected 84 cents of premium. So out of my cost basis, let's do the quick math here. 84. Nice. So basically reduce my cost basis by 12%. So going to keep kind of cracking away at that. Basically the premium on this guy's gone at about 70 cents a premium. So now I have a premium free trade. And I'm just going to be reducing my cost basis until it pops up. Now, it is at 18, which means I'm selling it specifically at a resistance point. So if it hits it and rejects it, I can probably still get out of the trade. And you can see even in a stock, like if I go back to open, right, if I took the short calls that I took, right, I mean, I sold them on Thursday. So I sold them here, right? Stock moved up literally 80 cents, and I still took a tiny profit on the short calls just because of the power of the theta decay. So I know that if this moves against me, it's going to take a little bit of time. I got the theta decay in my favor, and I can still get out of the way if it starts to surge up, and then I can reevaluate the trade. So that is open. I'm still long AMD. So this stock put in a nice hammer. It's pulling a decent candle today, not a ton of volume, but I believe it's finding support. We have NVIDIA earnings, so semis, some of them moved, some of them didn't move. If I overlay up SMH, instead, you can see that SMH was able to get above the 8 and the 15 before finishing on a bit of a tail here. I do believe it's poised to actually make a run up to the high. It might take a couple of days. This week on AMD, main thing that's really coming up is NVIDIA earnings. So right now on AMD, I'm fine with holding it. If it can break through, call it 74, 75, if it can kind of get a nice flag going here, right, get a nice candle pushing up off of this compression. It might need another day of compression or something, like if it gets another hammer and then it pops up, I will very much like that. Yeah, I mean, I think it still has to break through these EMAs here, as well as this earnings AVWAP. So that's going to provide a ceiling, and we also have the AVWAP from the all-time high. So if I pull up AMD over here, right, you can see this chart is kind of marked to all hell. So maybe I will remove the drawings. But, I mean, the most important part is with this upward sloping trend line that was breached, so it's probably no longer valid here. But I've just drawn a couple of AVWAPs from spots. You can see that the main thing that's really important is that there's kind of a cluster of stuff here. There's a whole bunch of shit. So if it can get through, again, 75-ish, 74, starts to get through those levels, gets into this gap, I can add to the trade and probably take profits, somewhere here like 81, 82. So I still think I can win in the trade, and it's a strong stock. I do think it's going to test the top of the range, so I can always take a much better loss, and I'm bleeding on the strength of this D1 chart over here. So that's what I'm leaning on AMD, and we also have, looks like this AVWAP coming in from over here, this high volume one, and is also lending some support coming up with the 50 SMA. So still in that one, this is a good one for patience though, and just how much heat I could take. So instead of my max heat, I took quite a bit of heat on this guy. I think it was probably down like a 5% loss on the account if I was wrong on this guy. But just leading on the technicals and just trusting the fact that, all right, I mean, this is going to hold, and this is a strong stock. It's a good stock. I have I'm fresh off of earnings, so like I was mentally prepared to hold this for 3 months if I needed to, in order for me to get the win on this. That's what I was thinking, and I knew that we're in a bullish market, and it's a strong stock, even if it is sort of kind of flattening out over here. So that is AMD, and then the last one that I am in is UPS. So I took this short yesterday just to balance out before the statement, because I was kind of leaning towards slightly bearish on the statement, but my positions were pretty bullish. So basically swapped out RCL, took a small win, and then put in UPS. Statement came out today. UPS had a pretty strong rally, and then it hit this resistance at this high at 89.41. So decent volume candle. Industrials are rallying, but we're holding this this level here on compression. Really weak bearish chart, and I'm also in a put on this, so my max loss is capped. So I feel fine holding it. I got the September 19th. Let's see. I think I have the. Where is it? I got to put it up here. I got the September 19th 90 puts. For $4.90, so about $1 premium on this guy. But yeah, I mean, really super weak bearish, very bearish daily chart that I can lean to on this one, and yeah, I mean, still looks pretty good to me. Still bearish, but if it starts to break above here, then I'll consider closing the trade for a loss, and then potentially try to make up that loss next week. But that would be maybe a 60% loss on the account. It's at about a 40% loss right now. So yeah, potentially a 60% loss on that trade if I got that wrong. Okay. The other thing I could do is, bear with me for a second here. Ooh. I could turn this into a PDS. That would be pretty interesting, because then it would reduce my max risk by about half. And what I'm basically doing is legging into a CDS. I may consider that. We will explore that later. I'm getting a little bit creative here. Or sorry, a PDS, not a CDS. Because if I make this a CDS, I'll see. I will see on that. But yeah, those are the positions that I'm in right now. That's it, and I am bidding on BE. Really like this breakout in the chart. You can see breaks out. Sometimes it'll pull back. I'm seeing if it's gonna bid at VWAP over here. If I get a little test on that breakout. If not, then I'll let it go. It's in this upward sloping channel over here, so I see it has room for me. Pretty good amount of room here. Pretty much all the way until 54-ish. So yeah, I mean, that is looking pretty good. Okay, well, that is it for this week. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will catch you in next week's video.